So apparently, the Galactic High Council decided that emotions were ruining perfectly good warfare. I know, right? After 10,000 years of civilizations blowing each other up with varying degrees of enthusiasm, some genius in a committee meeting decided that feelings were the real problem, not the actual blowing up part, the feelings about it. Enter Directive 447B, the Emotional Suppression in Sanctioned Combat Act. Catchy name. Really rolls off the tongue. The directive stated in approximately 700 pages of bureaucratic nonsense that all participants in council-sanctioned combat must maintain complete emotional neutrality. No anger, no fear, no excitement. Just cold, hard, logical violence. You know, like a really boring video game played by accountants. This is where our story begins. In the sterile white hallways of the Council's neutral combat arena, a space station that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought fun was a statistical error. Standing in Processing Bay 7, looking deeply confused about his life choices, was Marcus Riley. His call sign was Mad Dog, which should tell you everything you need to know about how well he was going to handle emotionless combat. Marcus was human, which meant he came pre-installed with approximately 7,000 emotions he couldn't turn off even if he wanted to. He was 6 feet of sarcasm wrapped in a pilot's flight suit, with the kind of cocky grin that made superior officers question their career paths. Earth had sent him as their champion for humanity's final petition to join the Galactic Union. Because nothing says we're responsible enough for galactic citizenship like sending your least emotionally stable fighter pilot. Across the processing desk stood Council Adjudicator Vexthorn, who looked like a praying mantis had a baby with a filing cabinet. His compound eyes reflected absolutely zero sympathy, which was impressive considering he had about 40 of them. He reviewed Marcus's paperwork with the enthusiasm of someone reading terms and conditions. "Human Marcus Riley," Vexthorn said, his voice like rustling paper. "You have been briefed on Directive 447B? The no feelings thing? Yeah, I got the memo. Seems totally reasonable and not at all insane." Vexthorn's antennae twitched, which Marcus was pretty sure was the alien equivalent of a disappointed sigh. Sarcasm is classified as emotional expression under subsection 12, paragraph 47. Fantastic, I'm already failing and we haven't even started. Correct. Vexthorn pulled up a holographic display showing a really, really big cyborg. "You will face Commander Core 5, reigning champion of the Rational Collective. He has won 463 consecutive matches. His emotional regulation score is 99.8%. Your emotional regulation score is..." Vexthorn paused, checking his tablet. -6%. We were unaware scores could go negative. "I contain multitudes," Marcus said. "Most of them anxious. This will be a short fight," Vexthorn concluded, stamping Marcus's papers with what looked like existential disapproval. The stakes were pretty simple. Humanity wanted full membership in the Galactic Union. Access to trade routes, defensive pacts, the good parking spots at space stations, all that jazz. But the Council had concerns. Specifically, they thought humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, too likely to start intergalactic incidents because someone looked at them funny. This demonstration fight was supposed to prove Earth could produce warriors who met Council standards. Sending Marcus Riley was either a stroke of genius or a cosmic joke. Honestly, probably both. Commander Core 5 stood in Training Bay Omega, which was less of a training facility and more of a very expensive standing room. He was 7 feet of biomechanical perfection, about 60% original organic material and 40% upgrade. His face was symmetrical to the point of being unsettling, with eyes that glowed a soft blue and showed about as much warmth as a tax return. Probability of victory, 98.7%, Core 5 announced to no one in particular. He did this every 4 minutes. Optimal strike patterns calculated, opponent weakness parameters identified, emotional liability quotient of human, extreme. His training regimen consisted of standing perfectly still while his internal processors ran approximately 9 million combat simulations. Sometimes he blinked. That was the extent of his physical preparation. Watching him train was like watching someone defragment a hard drive in real time. Meanwhile, 3 halls over, Marcus was conducting what he called training, but what most people would call a mental breakdown with snacks. He had discovered the station's vending machine stocked something called plutonian cheese rings, which tasted like regret, but had a really satisfying crunch. He was on his third bag. "You know those are mildly toxic to humans, right?" said a voice behind him. Marcus turned to find a 4-foot-tall amphibian creature wearing an official liaison badge. His skin was a nervous shade of green that kept shifting to yellow around the edges. His name tag read Pip, and his eyes were the size of tennis balls, which seemed to be his species' way of expressing perpetual anxiety. "Everything's toxic if you're scared enough," Marcus replied, offering the bag. "Want some?" "I couldn't possibly. I'm your official council liaison. I'm supposed to be professional." Pip took 3 cheese rings. "These are terrible. Can I have more?" They sat on a bench that was definitely not designed for human spines, eating toxic snacks and watching Core 5 stand motionless in the distance. "He's been like that for 6 hours, Pip said quietly. "Just standing there, computing. Does he ever, do anything fun?" "Fun is inefficient," Pip said, in a tone that suggested he'd heard that phrase way too many times. The rational collective removed fun from their society 400 years ago. Productivity increased by 12%. Suicides increased by 4,000%. But they don't like to talk about that part. Marcus studied the cyborg champion. "So I'm fighting a 7-foot computer who's literally forgotten how to have a good time. And I'm going to lose because I have feelings about things. Is that about right?" "The council believes emotions compromise tactical decision-making," Pip said carefully. "They've wanted to prove this for centuries. You're you're the proof. The proof that humans suck? The proof that emotions are weakness." Pip's color shifted to a deeper green. "Between you and me, I think that's garbage. But I'm just a junior liaison. Nobody asks my opinion." The pre-fight medical scan was, in Marcus's professional opinion, absolutely ridiculous. A medical drone floated around him, making disappointed beeping sounds while recording his vital signs. Heart rate elevated, adrenaline significantly elevated. Cortisol concerning emotional volatility index off the charts. The drone somehow sounded judgmental. Subject displays classic anxiety response. "Yeah, I'm about to fight a murder robot. Anxiety seems appropriate." For comparison, they showed him Core 5's readings. Heart rate, optimal and unchanging. Adrenaline, baseline. Emotional index, flatline. The cyborg's internal state looked like a really boring graph at an even more boring business meeting. In the council observation deck, various alien dignitaries were placing what they insisted were purely logical resource allocations, but were definitely bets. The odds against Marcus were 847 to 1. A few optimistic species had him at 1,000 to 1. One delegate, who appeared to be made entirely of crystallized pessimism, had gone with 10,000 to 1. Vexthorn watched the betting with what might have been satisfaction. The human will fail within the first engagement. This will demonstrate conclusively that emotional species are unsuitable for advanced combat. "You really want him to lose, don't you?" Pip asked quietly. "It is not about want. It is about proof. The Council has waited for an opportunity to validate Directive 447B. This human, with his excessive feelings and his inappropriate snacking, is exactly what we needed." Pip looked at Marcus through the observation window, watching him try to do jumping jacks in the low gravity and mostly just flailing. "What if you're wrong?" Vexthorn's antennae twitched in that disappointed way again. "Mathematics is never wrong, Liaison Pip. Only beings with emotions make mistakes." The combat arena materialized around them like a really expensive screensaver. It was a massive holographic battlefield that could shift terrain based on what the Council called advanced tactical algorithms and what Marcus called someone messing with the settings. 1 second you were in a rocky canyon, the next you were in zero gravity surrounded by debris. It was like fighting inside a video game designed by committee. Marcus stood at one end in his combat suit, which was basically reinforced armor with jet thrusters. It made him look like a really aggressive astronaut. At the other end, Core 5 hovered in his own combat rig, which looked like someone had given a tank the ability to fly and also have feelings of superiority. Combatants ready? Vexthorn's voice echoed through the arena. Reminder, any excessive emotional display will result in immediate penalty points. Begin. Core 5 moved first, executing a textbook flanking maneuver at exactly the speed recommended in the Council Combat Manual. His trajectory was perfect, his weapon lock was immediate, and his form was something you could show in training videos for the next 1,000 years. Marcus's response was to barrel roll directly toward the ground, fire his thrusters at random, and scream, "I'm gonna hit the thing." This was not in any combat manual. Penalty assessed to Human Riley, Vexthorn announced. Unauthorized battle cry. That wasn't a battle cry, that was a statement of fact, Marcus yelled, narrowly avoiding Core 5's plasma burst. Additional penalty, excessive volume. The thing about fighting someone perfectly logical is that they do exactly what they're supposed to do. They calculate optimal firing solutions. They predict your movements based on standard evasive patterns. They position themselves according to strategic advantage. The thing about Marcus Riley is that he didn't know what he was supposed to do. His movements were what the Council database would classify as chaotic neutral with aggressive tendencies. He zigged when he should have zagged, he zagged when he should have stayed still, and occasionally he just pointed his thrusters in random directions to see what would happen. Core 5's targeting computer had a breakdown trying to predict him. Probability calculations, inconclusive, the cyborg muttered. Human tactics do not match any known pattern. Running expanded analysis. I'm not using tactics, buddy. I'm panicking at high speed. Marcus dove behind a holographic rock formation, then immediately regretted it when the terrain shifted and the rock became thin air. He fell 15 feet, caught himself with thrusters, and accidentally rocketed directly at Core 5. The cyborg calculated 47 different responses to this maneuver. Marcus, operating on pure instinct and fear, chose the 48th option that didn't exist. He threw his plasma rifle at Core 5's head while spinning sideways. It worked. The rifle smacked into Core 5's sensor array, and while the cyborg was recalculating his entire tactical approach to account for projectile stupidity, Marcus grabbed the rifle mid-bounce and fired 3 shots into Core 5's shield generator. Point to Human Riley, the arena announced, sounding surprised about it. The Council observation deck erupted in confused chittering. That should not have worked, Vexthorn said, reviewing the footage. The human's trajectory was tactically nonsensical. Maybe that's the point, Pip suggested quietly. Nonsense cannot be tactical, Vexthorn snapped. Round 2 started with the terrain shifting to a vertical maze of platforms. Core 5 immediately calculated the optimal high ground position. Marcus looked at the maze, looked at his thruster fuel gauge, and made a decision that his instructors back on Earth would have called suicidally stupid. He boosted straight up over the entire maze and came down on Core 5 from directly above. Penalty assessed. Unauthorized vertical approach outside designated combat parameters. Make me more designated, Marcus shouted, firing wildly while plummeting. Core 5 systems were starting to show strain. Every time he calculated Marcus's next move, the human did something that wasn't on the list. It was like playing chess against someone who occasionally just threw the board. Human tactics are inefficient, Core 5 stated. But there was something new in his voice. A microsecond of hesitation, his first experience with uncertainty in decades. Yet, effective, calculating new response paradigms. Here's a paradigm for you, Marcus said, landing badly on a platform and immediately rolling off it. He caught himself on the edge, used the momentum to swing around and fired from an upside-down position that violated at least 6 laws of physics and probably several council regulations. Another hit. Another point. This is impossible, Vexthorn said, his antennae now in full disappointed vibration mode. Pip tried not to smile. His species didn't really have smiles, but his color shifted to a hopeful shade of blue-green. Maybe emotions aren't the liability you thought. Down in the arena, Core 5 was experiencing something he'd never felt before. His probability calculators were giving him conflicting data. His tactical processors were suggesting strategies that didn't make sense. For the first time in his augmented life, Commander Core 5 was confused. And confusion, it turns out, was just the gateway drug to feelings. The council observation deck had devolved into what could only be described as organized chaos. Delegates were arguing in 17 different languages, 3 of which involved color changes and one that was apparently just aggressive humming. Vexthorn was reviewing footage frame by frame, trying to find the exact moment everything went wrong. "The human is not following proper combat protocols," insisted Ambassador Krill, a crystalline being who looked like an angry chandelier. "His movements are erratic, his tactics are nonsensical, his emotional output is violating at least 12 subsections of Directive 447B. And yet he is winning," observed Diplomat Thresh, who resembled a floating jellyfish made of pure smugness. "Curious, is it not?" "It is statistical anomaly," Vexthorn declared. "Nothing more. Commander Core 5 will adapt. Logic always prevails." Down in the arena, Logic was having a really bad day. Core 5 had upgraded his tactical algorithms 3 times. He'd accessed the Council's entire combat database. He'd run probability trees so complex they could predict the weather on 14 planets simultaneously. None of it helped. Every calculation told him where Marcus should go. Marcus went somewhere else. Analyzing human pattern recognition, Core 5 stated, dodging a plasma shot that came from an angle his sensors said was impossible. Conclusion: there is no pattern. Secondary conclusion: this is tactically inadvisable. Tertiary conclusion: it is working anyway. Does not compute. The terrain shifted again, this time to a zero-gravity debris field. Chunks of holographic wreckage floated everywhere, creating a 3-dimensional maze. This was Core 5's preferred environment. He could calculate trajectories, account for momentum, predict every possible vector. Marcus looked at the floating debris and had one thought: this is gonna hurt. He fired his thrusters at maximum and used the chunks as pinball bumpers, ricocheting between them in a way that would make physics teachers weep. It was less of a tactical maneuver and more of a controlled disaster. But every time Core 5 lined up a shot, Marcus was already bouncing off something else in a completely unpredictable direction. "This is not combat," Core 5 said. And there was definitely something in his voice now. Frustration, confusion, the beginnings of emotion in a being designed to have none. "This is chaos." "Welcome to humanity, pal," Marcus shouted, slamming into a piece of debris, spinning wildly, and somehow still managing to fire a shot that clipped Core 5's shoulder. That's when Pip made a mistake. A very small, very understandable mistake. He was watching the fight so intently, leaning forward in the observation deck, that he accidentally triggered the deck's emergency exit, which opened directly into the arena, which meant he fell through it, flailing and screaming in a pitch that his species usually reserved for mating calls or predator warnings. Marcus saw the small green amphibian falling through the debris field, directly into the path of Core 5's next plasma volley. He didn't think. Thinking would have taken too long. Thinking would have calculated the tactical disadvantage of abandoning his position. Thinking would have concluded that saving one small liaison was worth less than maintaining combat advantage. Marcus didn't think. He felt. He fired every thruster at once, rocketing across the arena, grabbed Pip mid-fall, and took Core 5's plasma shot directly to his shield generator. His shields collapsed. Alarms screamed. He went tumbling through the debris with Pip clutched to his chest. "Are you out of your mind?" Pip squeaked. "You sacrificed your shields for me?" "Yeah, well, you're my friend. Shut up." The entire arena went silent. Core 5 hovered in place, his weapon still raised, his targeting systems locked on Marcus's now vulnerable position. It was the perfect shot. Victory was calculated at 100% probability. All he had to do was fire. He didn't fire. "Tactical analysis," Core 5 said slowly, his voice glitching slightly. "Human Riley sacrificed strategic advantage to preserve non-combatant liaison. Action is illogical. Benefit, minimal. Cost, potentially combat loss. Reason, unknown. Does not compute. Does not. Why did you do that?" Marcus set Pip down on a stable piece of debris, checking that the little guy was okay. "Because that's what you do. You help people. but it provides no tactical advantage. Not everything is about tactical advantage, Robot Man. Core 5 systems were lighting up like a Christmas tree. His emotional suppression protocols were firing warning after warning. Something was happening in his circuitry, in the small, organic parts of his brain that remembered being alive without algorithms. He was feeling something. This sensation, Core 5 said quietly. Processing. Cross-referencing database. It is confusion? No. Query. Why would someone act against self-interest to preserve another? What is the logic? There is no logic, Marcus said, his shield slowly regenerating. It's called caring. It's messy and stupid, and it makes you do things that don't make sense. Welcome to having feelings, buddy. It sucks. You'll love it. I do not understand. Yeah, that's kind of the point. And Core 5, champion of the rational collective, winner of 463 consecutive fights, being of pure logic and calculated decisions, experienced his first truly emotional moment. It was confusion, mixed with curiosity, mixed with something that might have been awe. His processors tried to categorize it, failed, and then did something they'd never done before. They stopped trying to understand and just felt it. In the observation deck, Vexthorn was experiencing his own version of emotions, mainly panic. This is not how this was supposed to proceed. The human is supposed to demonstrate emotional weakness. He is not supposed to trigger emotional awakening in a rational collective champion. Maybe, Pip said, climbing back through the emergency exit. That's exactly what he was supposed to do. Final round commencing, the arena announced. Special terrain, emotional paradox field. Marcus looked up at the observation deck. I'm sorry, the what now? Vexthorn's voice came through with what might have been smugness. The emotional paradox field is designed specifically to test Directive 447B. It detects emotional responses from combatants and applies proportional tactical disadvantages. The more feelings you display, the more penalties you receive. It was created to demonstrate why emotions have no place in combat. So it's a feelings detector that punishes you for having feelings? Precisely. You guys are really committed to this whole emotionless thing, huh? The terrain shifted into something that looked like a nightmare designed by an abstract artist. The ground wasn't quite solid, the air seemed to shimmer with sensors, and floating holographic markers showed real-time emotional readings for both fighters. Marcus's marker was lit up like a rave. Core 5's marker flickered uncertainly, showing readings it had never shown before. Oh no, Pip said from the observation deck. The field is registering emotional activity from Commander Core 5. He's never shown emotional activity before. He doesn't know how to handle it. Vexthorn stared at the readings. This is not possible. Rational collective members do not have emotions. They are suppressed, they are removed, they are apparently not very good at staying removed, Diplomat Thresh observed with that jellyfish smugness. The round began, and immediately Core 5 started experiencing tactical disadvantages. His targeting systems lagged. His movement felt sluggish. Every time his emotional markers spiked with confusion or curiosity, the field applied penalties. Marcus, paradoxically, was thriving. Penalty assessed to human Riley. Excessive concern for others. Penalty assessed, elevated heart rate. Penalty assessed, hope. The arena kept announcing his violations, and each one did affect his systems. But here's the thing about Marcus Riley. He'd been dealing with emotions his entire life. He knew how to fight while scared, move while anxious, shoot while angry. Emotions weren't a new obstacle, they were his baseline. For Core 5, emotions were catastrophic system failures. Experiencing elevated concern, the cyborg said, his voice actually showing inflection for the first time. Systems compensation, inadequate. New sensation detected, fear. Fear is unpleasant, requesting immediate emotional suppression protocols. Can't help you, buddy, Marcus said, firing a shot that went wide because his hands were shaking from adrenaline. You gotta feel your way through it. I do not know how to feel my way through anything. I calculate, I process, Core 5 dodged Marcus's next attack, but his movement was jerky, uncertain. Why do I suddenly care whether I win? Because winning means something now. Congratulations. You've discovered stakes. The fight continued, but it wasn't really a fight anymore. It was more like a therapy session with plasma weapons. Marcus kept moving, kept shooting, but he was also talking. Because apparently getting a robot to have an existential crisis mid-combat was a valid tactic. You know what's weird about emotions? Marcus said, using a chunk of terrain as cover. They make everything matter more. That shot you just missed? Without emotions, it's just data. With emotions, it's frustrating. That hit you just landed feels good, doesn't it? I am not designed to feel good or bad about tactical outcomes, Core 5 insisted, but his voice said otherwise. There was pride in that hit. Small, confused pride, but pride nonetheless. Too late, robot man. You're feeling things now. Can't put that genie back in the bottle. Core 5's emotional markers were spiking all over the place. The paradox field was applying so many penalties that he could barely move. But something else was happening too. His movements, when he did move, were less calculated, more instinctive, more alive. This is terrible, Core 5 said, and he sounded almost gleeful about it. I am experiencing approximately 47 different emotional states simultaneously. Confusion, curiosity, frustration, excitement, fear, joy. Systems are overloading. I should be concerned. I am concerned. I am also fascinated. Is this what organic beings experience constantly? Pretty much. Welcome to the circus. It is chaos. Yep. It is inefficient. Extremely. It is. Core 5 paused, hovering in the center of the arena, his weapon lowered. It is wonderful. I have been calculating optimal outcomes for decades. I have never once cared about any of them. Now I care. I care about this fight. I care about winning. I care about losing. I care about understanding why I care. The observation deck had gone completely silent. Every delegate was watching this unfold with expressions ranging from horror to fascination. This was not supposed to happen, Vexthorn said weakly. Marcus lowered his own weapon. So what do you want to do about it, Core 5? We can keep fighting. I can probably take you at this point, you're kind of a mess. Or you can make your first truly emotional decision. What would that be? Whatever you want it to be. That's the whole point of emotions. You get to choose based on what feels right, not just what calculates right. Core 5 floated there, his systems running through probability trees, tactical assessments, logical frameworks. All of them told him to continue fighting. All of them calculated his current reduced odds of victory. All of them provided clear, rational paths forward. He ignored all of them. I concede, Core 5 said simply. The arena alarm blared in surprise. The word concession appeared in holographic letters 50 feet high. Why? Marcus asked. You could still win this. Because I want to know what happens next, Core 5 said, and his voice was filled with something that had never been there before. Wonder. For my entire existence, I have known every outcome before it occurred. Probabilities, calculations, certainties. But now I do not know what happens next. I have curiosity. I have anticipation. I have hope? Is this hope? Yeah, Marcus said, grinning. That's hope. I love it. It is terrifying and illogical, and I love it. The council chambers erupted into what could only be described as organized pandemonium. Delegates were shouting in languages that didn't even have words for what just happened. Vexthorn looked like his compound eyes might actually fall out. Ambassador Krill was vibrating at a frequency that suggested either rage or a system malfunction. This is unprecedented, Vexthorn announced, trying to restore order. The human has technically won by concession. However, the victory was achieved through violation of Directive 447B, emotional manipulation of the opponent, and approximately 47 separate combat protocol violations. So he won by doing exactly what you said was impossible, Diplomat Thresh noted. Fascinating. I move to disqualify the human on grounds of excessive emotional expression, Vexthorn continued desperately. I second that motion, Ambassador Krill buzzed. I counter that motion, said a voice from the back of the chamber. It was Councillor Venn. a being that looked like living starlight and rarely spoke at all. When Ven spoke, people listened. The human was given a task: demonstrate combat effectiveness for species evaluation. He has done so decisively. But the emotional violations were the entire point, Ven interrupted. We created Directive 447B to prove emotions were weakness. The human has proven the opposite. He weaponized his emotions. He turned his opponent's lack of emotions into a liability. He demonstrated adaptability, creativity, and tactical innovation that our logical frameworks never predicted. These are precisely the qualities the Galactic Union needs. The chamber went silent. Pip, watching from the liaison section, couldn't believe what he was hearing. Is Counselor Ven saying what I think they're saying? Ven continued, their voice resonating like cosmic background radiation. The Galactic Union has been stagnant for millennia. We fight the same wars, make the same calculations, achieve the same predictable outcomes. We have optimized ourselves into irrelevance. The humans bring chaos. Yes, they bring emotions, unpredictability, and what appears to be a complete disregard for sensible combat doctrine. But they also bring exactly what we lack, the ability to surprise ourselves. This is absurd, Vexthorn protested. You cannot base galactic policy on one human who got lucky. It was not luck. Core 5's voice came through the chamber speakers. He'd patched into the council feed from the arena. It was heart. I have spent decades calculating perfection. The human spent minutes feeling his way through chaos and defeated me anyway. Not because emotions made him weaker. Because emotions made him unpredictable, adaptive, and ultimately superior to my logical frameworks. I move that humanity be granted full membership status. You cannot vote on council matters, Vexthorn said. Then I volunteer to sponsor the human petition as representative of the rational collective. I have discovered emotions. I wish to learn more. And I believe the only way the collective evolves is by embracing what we have suppressed. The chamber erupted again. This was the equivalent of the head of the logic department suddenly declaring that chaos was pretty cool, actually. Counselor Ven raised the appendage made of pure light. All in favor of accepting humanity's petition for full Galactic Union membership? The vote was closer than it should have been, because the council loved their procedures and regulations. But ultimately, curiosity won over caution. Humans were in. Marcus stood in the arena, covered in sweat and probably concussed, watching the council vote on holographic displays. When the final tally came through, he pumped his fist in the air and immediately regretted it because his ribs hurt. We did it, Pip said, bouncing into the arena on his little amphibian legs. You actually did it. I mostly just didn't die, Marcus replied. Low bar, but I cleared it. Core 5 approached them, his movements less mechanical now, more uncertain. Human Marcus, I wish to express gratitude. Yes, gratitude. You have given me something I did not know I lacked. Feelings. Purpose. Before I fought because I was programmed to fight. Now I fight because I choose to fight. The difference is everything. 3 weeks later, Marcus Riley found himself standing in front of 200 alien military cadets in the Council's military academy. He was teaching combat theory. He was teaching emotional combat theory to beings who thought emotions were basically designer flaws. Okay, so feelings, Marcus said, pointing at a holographic display that showed his completely insane fighting style frame by frame. You're going to feel scared, that's normal, use it. Fear makes you faster, anger makes you focused, joy makes you creative. The trick isn't to not feel things. The trick is to feel things and fight anyway. The cadet stared at him with approximately 40 different types of eyes. Any questions? Every appendage in the room went up. Yeah, this is going to be a long semester. Pip had been promoted to senior liaison for human integration, which meant he got a bigger office and significantly more stress. But he was happy. Humans were weird, but they were interesting weird. The galaxy needed interesting. Core 5 started a support group called Emotions Anonymous for AI and cybernetic beings who were just discovering feelings. It met every Tuesday. Attendance was growing weekly. Turns out a lot of beings had been suppressing emotions because society told them to, and suddenly having permission to feel things was revolutionary. Vexthorn had been reassigned to a desk job reviewing parking regulations for cargo freighters. He was very unhappy about this, which was ironic considering his position on emotions, and the Galactic Union, for the first time in millennia, had no idea what would happen next. They'd invited chaos into their orderly system. They'd given humans a seat at the table. Mistakes would be made. Incidents would occur. Feelings would be felt. It was going to be a disaster. It was going to be wonderful. Marcus Riley, standing in front of his class of confused aliens, trying to explain why crying during movies was actually a tactical advantage for emotional regulation, thought about how weird his life had become. A year ago, he was a fighter pilot with anger management issues. Now he was accidentally starting an emotional revolution across the galaxy. So in conclusion, he said to his bewildered students, emotions aren't bugs in the system, they're features. Weird, messy, inconvenient features that will make you want to scream into the void sometimes. But they're what make you alive. And that's worth everything. A small crystalline cadet in the front row raised a tentacle. Sir, what if we calculate that emotions are inefficient for our species? Marcus grinned. Then feel inefficient. Trust me, it's way more fun. Somewhere in the Council archives, Directive 447B was being quietly filed under historical mistakes. Right next to that time, the Council tried to optimize art and accidentally made everything boring for 3 centuries. The galaxy was changing. One feeling at a time. And humanity, with all its messy emotions and tactical absurdity, was leading the charge. Mad Dog Riley had won with heart alone, and he'd taught a cyborg to feel, convinced a council to change, and proved that sometimes the most logical thing to do is throw logic out the window and just care about stuff. The High Council had banned emotion in combat. Marcus Riley had responded by making emotions the ultimate weapon, and the galaxy would never be the same.